Hey guys, welcome back. This is Amy Hines Real Talk. We're here for round 2 with my buddy Cliff.
Hey guys.
So we have been very excited to talk about this with you. This is a question that we've talked about. We've heard it with our friends. It's just a constant question, and it's a good question to ask. And it's, what is love, and what does love look like? What should love feel like? How do I know when he or she loves me? And so it's interesting. I'm no counselor. I'm on this journey with you guys. I'm trying to figure this out as we go. I have not arrived by any stretch of the imagination. I hope not. That would be terrible. So I'm constantly looking for good, truthful, healthy, sound advice to help me understand where I've come from and where I'm going. And there was a particular podcast that I had heard, and it was talking about, when does he say that he loves you? That is kind of an important thing, of not only that he says he loves you, but how does that come about? Does that, from a male perspective, is there a difference between, I love you on the third date, which that should be scary, versus let's talk about that.
Well, I think the timing of it's important. Like, when did he first say he loved you? And then also, I think the question is how do you know they mean it? Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own definition of love, and that definition, and there's some people that don't even know that they have a definition of love, or what that would even look like. Mm-hmm. I think even when we look back at our past or even upbringing, we don't realize that the effect that our childhood and our experiences and traumas can all affect that definition of love, and especially in a relationship, that can be very skewed.
For sure.
And I think with that's an important thing to even look back. We talked about previously and about your dating journal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to suffice as just a dating journal, but a life journal, in different aspects. Yeah. Sometimes writing down stuff in your journal helps you kind of give insight. It's one thing to think about it, but when you write it down, there's something about writing stuff down that becomes this mental connection with it, where you can maybe look at it objectively and see what your thoughts are from a different perspective or a different line. So I think identifying for everyone they have to identify what their definition of love is, or if they don't even know if they have one, writing what that would look like down on paper, so you don't deviate it and fall into this kind of counterfeit love, because anybody can say they love you, and I'm sure there's plenty. I've had it done to me where I'm like, they said they love me awful quick.
It's real, isn't it though? Because for me, like, if a man says it to me, and I think a lot of women have this perception of men, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are tough, right? You don't show emotion. So if you're going to go to the length of saying something like that, well, my goodness, you must absolutely mean it if you're going to say it. But, did he say it to me right after I got done having sex with him? I've had that happen. I think you've had that happen to you as well. And that's definitely not the time for me to go, yes, I'm pretty certain that he means that. Yep. I think he's more in love with the sex that he just got than me.
We did the deed. That could be different. It's love.
It's love.
Yep.
We're in it. And
check that box.
And
we're
absolutely, good. Part of that too is, I think, and you and I have had this discussion as well, but talking about, mental weddings, these leaps or these mile markers that we make. So I know I have made the mistake of not only dating for potential, but dating based on what I think the motive is. So, he says he loves me, so therefore I filter everything that he does, even those dysfunctional things that he does, right, through the filter of love. That has become my dysfunctional definition of love.
And I think with that too is you put on the love glasses where, we get the little hearts in your eyes. And so everything is love.
Yes.
Dysfunction, bad behavior, questionable behavior becomes, it's all good. He loves me, so I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. Which, obviously that's a point where a cause for concern when you're looking through the love goggles, because there's objectivity goes right out the window. Yeah. There's no doing your due diligence anymore. It's just we've arrived, we're at the destination, everything's all downhill from here.
Right. And a slight tangent to that, but you and I have talked about this as well, is sex. When you have sex with somebody, we're not going to wander too far down that path, but I'm going to talk just my experience. And my boundaries on that, and something that I have learned, is if I have sex with someone, I lose my ability to evaluate the situation based on what's actually happening. And there have been situations where, stay in it because the sex is really good, but nothing else is really good. Like, that's all you got going. You can't carry a conversation to save your life. We can't talk about real things. If we hit a road bump, the solution is, well, we'll just have sex and then I'll all be better. But there's really no forward movement. And so for myself, I've decided that that's a boundary I'm just not going to cross anymore. I have a great deal of fun in that realm, but I'm just not willing to pay the interest rate on it at this point. There's nothing I need to prove or learn from it, but I do want to know that, from all of the hard work that I've done to try and learn thus far, I don't want to throw that out the window just for a really good piece of what. Right. Just so that I get myself back in that same pattern. At this point, my peace is worth much more than that. So,
and I think, it all depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for just to have fun or a good time? Or are you looking for something serious, more sustaining? And I think with that, what you just said was, important to look at it from that perspective to find out what you want, because you hear it. It's not uncommon for people to have sex, get emotionally attached to someone that they have no business being attached to. We're all different. It's not a one-trick pony for everybody.
Right.
It just depends. We all have these different emotional levels, mental levels, spiritual levels, whatever you want to call it. But it affects, what might affect you might affect somebody else totally differently. Yep. So it's important to understand that. And I think what you're saying is to be very cognizant. Like, you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Right.
And you're not.
I've got 4 of them.
So it's come to a point where you don't like the result of that, and it's like what you're saying. It can have some emotional consequences that sometimes people don't ever deal with, and they just keep carrying on the same old routine pattern.
It adds up.
Right.
Those injuries, those body shots, just because you're tough. And this is a misconception that I've had, and won't go too far down this path, but just because I'm tough doesn't mean that I should do things that test my pain threshold constantly. Right. Just because I can take it doesn't mean that I should. So kind of going back to boundaries and definitions. So as, we're talking about what is love. So, when old boy back in the day says, "Oh, I love you," right after, we did the deed, I was like, surely that's authentic. Mm-hmm. I'm certain we're in it for the long haul. But I have had situations, where I've had this mental wedding in my head without even realizing it, and the amount of damage that will do. And I don't want to do that again. So for me, love is a variety of things. And this is the important piece that was helpful for me, for my progress. I think love and I instantly think romance.
Right.
And wrong. For me, that's not at all where I needed to go to really understand what love was to me and what love needed to be for me.
If I can add to that too, a lot of women engage in romance novels, and I'm not knocking if you enjoy that type of stuff, but that definitely paints a picture of what love is not. It's very fictional, and of course, people love the intimacy, the lust, the fantasy of all of that.
You mean guys are not coming straight out of a Nicholas Sparks book?
No, of course not. I mean,
are you sure?
Six pack riding in on a white stallion or a black stallion.
That's it. I'm out. Yep. That's it. Done.
See ya. I ain't right, even though I wouldn't mind.
I give up.
Pretty cool to ride a stallion, but yeah, I think
that six pack. I haven't seen that for a minute. I don't know about yours, but mine's been gone for a while.
With his flowing locks just bouncing nicely from side to side. Anyways, we digress. But yeah, I think with what you said is, I think that's a common definition of what love looks, even for men, like romance. Never in there is there any other definition besides the romance, the fun, how it feels, the
nice
emotion.
Nice face and a tiny waist,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So what's your definition now of love?
So my definition for myself actually we need to go back this up a little bit. So what I found was, my first source of love came from my relationship with my biological father. That was probably the most pivotal relationship for me in making this definition. And that was the most dysfunctional relationship. I've had some that have rivaled it, but that was the first and probably the most significant dysfunctional relationship that I had. So being in a relationship like that where it is just a natural assumption and instinct of a child that your parents, especially that your biological parents, must love you. So therefore everything that he did defined my definition of love. But everything that he did, for the most part, put me in a state of constant fight or flight. So as I would go into relationships dating, this is where this journal came in super handy. It helped me, instead of just looking at it from a dating perspective, I started to look at this from a life perspective. Where did this come from? What was the root? So as I'm in these dysfunctional relationships and things are just red flag after red flag after red flag, and I'm in fight or flight mode, I have, my brain over time has equated this to love. This is what love always looked like to me, so it's not as alarming to me as it should be. And I kept blowing by these red flags thinking, well, this is what I know. This dysfunction is normal. Doesn't make it right. So for me, it was critical to break that off, and I had to call an audible timeout. So
Right.
where is this coming from? Okay, now I've identified. Okay, I can look at my biological father and go, clearly, that was very dysfunctional. So what should my definition be?
Well, I just want to add to that because in my own life, just experiences, dating, I've dated someone who've had that kind of troubled home life growing up, and where they grew up into a life of just like dysfunction with parents or step parents or however that works out. But you see that to them, love is dysfunction and chaos.
Right.
And so there came a point in the relationship where if everything was going smooth, something had to be wrong because they didn't attribute, love and pee or just enjoying each other's company, laughing together. They looked at there's something underneath that's really awkward.
Right.
And so they
would question you unfairly.
Right. And it's attributing that chaos to their definition of love. And so if it's not chaos, it's not love, which is totally reverse. So I think that's a good point to bring up. And in your journaling, for some of them, for some of you people out there, it's just understanding and getting an objective opinion. And sometimes you need to look inside yourself to order. And it's not your fault. This isn't about judgment. It's just finding out. We all grow up in different homes, different environments, some with parents, some with no parents.
Ask the questions.
Right.
Ask the questions. And this is the part that I didn't know to do. I thought, well, I survived all of that as a kid. I'm grown now. Like, these things don't follow me. I'm fine. And I'm fine has been one of the worst things I have ever said over myself over time, because I've been so fine, that I almost ended up, actually I did. I ended up in the hospital last year with what we thought was a heart attack. I was in the ER twice in the same day. Not my finest hour, but that was the result of years and years and years of I'm fine and letting this dysfunctional cycle continue. So something clearly had to change. So I started to kind of go back, all right, what's the root? So for myself and my belief stage and where I'm at spiritually, the Bible is the authority in my life at this point. Wherever you're at, I have absolute respect for where you are. So this isn't me pushing this on you, but this is my story. So this is where I'm at, and this is what has helped me. But 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, and and I want to read, I'm going to have Cliff actually read the Webster definition as contrast, because the Webster definition is what I had to go off of before I decided that wasn't working for me. Once I realized that love necessarily wasn't just a romantic principle. Love had to apply. Like, if I'm going to define love, then it has to be able to cover all of my relationships. So
I think that's good because, the definition here is very kind of ambiguous. It's kind of a broad topic, and it doesn't really give you kind of insight if you're looking at the dictionary definition of what love is. To start off, it says, love is a strong affection for another arising out of kinship or personal ties. Kind of a hole in that.
Very vague.
Right. You could have that with a friendship. You know what I mean?
That could be an acquaintance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Acquaintance, friendship, and real relationship, by the way, not the same thing.
Right. Different kind of love there.
Totally different.
This is an attraction based on sexual desire, affection, and tenderness felt by lovers.
Yeah, that's not going to help with my relationship with my dad.
That's physical love. That's
not
anybody can get physical love. Going down to a bar, 11 o'clock at night. Everybody's looking for love.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Not everybody, of course, obviously.
But it's lust, mainly. Especially when the lights are out, you can do whatever you wanted to be.
Right. Love is a lot easier when the lights are out.
When the lights are out, absolutely. Long distance, lights out. We can make this work forever. Ever.
Okay. Another one is affection based on admiration, benevolence, or a common interest. Love example is love for his old schoolmates. And the last one, or well, we got several definitions. An assurance of affection. Give her my love is an example.
But what is that?
Yeah.
Right? Great. You gave me your love. Does that mean you gave me a case of herpes? I need to understand this. Lord, I hope not. Clear definitions are important.
Right, yeah. Yeah, very clear. This says a warm attachment, enthusiasm, or devotion. Okay.
I've got that with my cat.
Right.
Again, she shits in a litter box. I'm not real sure that that's really a reciprocal love.
True. Well, and I kind of like the devotion part, because that's when you're devoted to somebody. I kind of think that's kind of in a definition.
Loyalty.
Yeah.
We can keep that piece. That piece can move forward.
Okay, so the next one is an object of attachment, devotion, or admiration. Baseball was his first love.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
If I'm on the same level as baseball.
Right. Something could be wrong there.
Something could be wrong there.
A beloved person, darling, often used as a term of endearment. Okay. I mean, you guys get the gist of
darling,
all this.
Some of my worst relationships, I was called darling. And I think that's because they couldn't keep my name straight with all the other ones that they were juggling. Not helpful.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the point at which I was like, that's it. I'm out. I got to find something totally different. So I went to Corinthians, which to me, it doesn't really matter what your faith is. This is something that is quantifiable, and that's what I need. I need something quantifiable. So when I get BS thrown at me, I can filter it, and I can know that loving baseball and loving me are not the same thing. I need to be able to understand these things so that I can filter that out. So let's look at, just so we're not going off my memory, we get this right. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8.
Okay, so this starts off, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
Right. So that, when we look at, for myself, when I look at this, first of all, in using this as a guiding principle, regardless of what your belief system is, no possible harm can come from operating off of these boundaries.
Right.
There's no downside to using this as a definition whatsoever. Only good can come of it. So that's a good thing. It has to be universal in the goodness that it can produce. And it has to be universal in that it can apply to any relationship. That definition will help me with my father. It'll help me with my brother. It'll help me with my neighbor, my coworker, and anyone that wants to be a lover, or better, someone that wants to be an actual partner for me. That will work across the board. So that has been something that has been so helpful for me to define what love is, so that I can stop blown by the red flags, letting what my brain has been marinating in for my whole life as dysfunction that I've said is love, to detox from that, to do the work, and to now look at it from a different lens. And I'll tell you what, there are ones that, there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that, oh, I love you, baby, and scored an absolute 0. We're going to talk about a goose egg on that evaluation. If I run his actual actions through that filter, I can look at each, and I'm not kidding, it's so sad, each and every single one of those things on that list, and he doesn't meet a single one of them. So one that kind of stood out to me in that too was how they don't dishonor others. That's the waitress at the restaurant that we go to also. Is he rude to them? Is he rude to his family? Is he rude to his friends? It's not just how he treats me, but how does he treat people? How does she treat?
Right. I think that's important, but also, like, these aren't absolutes. Like, this is, we're all imperfect. We all have our bad days where we might fly off the handle with the waitress or what have you. So this is not like if they break one of those, because
in a moment in time, this is more of a pattern.
Yeah, this is like a pattern of almost character traits where you see over and over and over again. So, to keep that in mind, but it's a good guideline. This idea or this definition of love, no matter what yours is, this is great. This tackles every little deal, and it's almost about protection,
Very much so.
What
yourself and them.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is a reciprocal sort of definition, which was so encouraging to me. And that's what I needed. I needed something that would speak to me.
Right. And it's one thing to have a definition, but it's one thing to follow it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can have that definition in your mind, but if it's not in your heart, like this is, I'm not going to settle for anything else but these things.
But he's fine.
Right. But looks like he just
what do we
floated
do?
down from heaven, you know, with a halo on his
with
head.
With his man bun. That needs to stop, by the way.
Yeah.
That's just a digression.
But he dishonors the waitress. You know, he's rude to people, you know, or he or she, you know, this applies for women as well, you know. So, you know, I think it's a very good point to have that definition, but to stick to it, you know, because this is designed to protect you, protect your heart, protect your mind, because it's like what you talked about. The
That's
interest,
what I needed.
You know, the interest on some of these relationships carry on. You know, it's just like a bad credit card. You miss a payment, that sucker's like 30%. You know what I mean? And so you're just paying on that. You're just paying the interest every month, where you're sitting there putting all your time and energy into something that's not, you know, it's not reaping any reward to it. So I think it's important, because we can look at relationships as just jumping from relationship to relationship, act like it doesn't take its toll. It does, you know, and you see that, you know, in people that are hurt carrying on. I mean, it could be 3 or 4 relationships where they're still carrying that stuff into the new one. So it's important to, you know, spend your time wisely and your energy. You know, you don't want to waste a bunch of time if you're looking for something special, only to end up in tragedy and heartbreak and, you know, all that stuff. But
and a Facebook status. I mean, like this has nothing to do with a status. This put me into a very different thought process, where it wasn't about just having the company or being able to say that I'm not alone or be with somebody, but this put me into evaluation mode, where I have to really look at what their actions are, and mine also too. This was a key point for me. Am I in it because I want to give these things to this person, or am I in it because I just don't want to be alone? That doesn't quantify for that, and I've definitely been guilty of made that mistake as well. So the last thing I want to do, I know the damage that's been done to me by my own choices, by things that people have done to me. The last thing I want to do is perpetuate that in someone else. So this was important. We really wanted to have this conversation about what love is, because I think, you know, everybody's talking about it's my truth, it's their truth. Well, I'm sorry, but when you have so many different versions of truth, at some point those are going to conflict. How do we know what's actually true? Because if it's true for you, but it conflicts with what's true for me, they both can't equally be true. We need something that anchors us and roots us and causes peace. So, you know, my life and a lot of my story has been a lot of chaos and doing things the wrong way, and I'm still on my way hoping to get there. But my hope is that in sharing some of this, that if nothing else, it helps me to propel on my journey to a better place, and I hope that it helps you in some ways too. So I'd love to hear your comments. Please comment down below. Check the link. You can check out my website, ahrealtalk.com. I'd love to engage with you. This is supposed to be an open platform of conversation where we talk. So please let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you soon.
Don't forget to hit subscribe or like and all that good stuff down below.
He's got my back. Thanks, guys.
Bye.